3 years after the wedding ceremony, Robert still kept delaying signing the papers with me. I overheard him confiding in his friends after he'd been drinking. Sarah was kidnapped, he slurred. I just feel like she's damaged goods. My blood ran cold instantly, and I was frozen in place. He casually pulled a woman into his arms and kissed her belly. The woman was a bar singer, young and beautiful. While I was stunned, a friend request popped up on my phone, and I received a prenatal ultrasound photo. The caption read, "Damaged goods, what makes you think you can compete with me?" Robert didn't know that 3 years ago, I hadn't been kidnapped. Instead, I was away on a highly classified rescue mission as a secret agent. I sent a message to Frank Miller. "Dad, where's your island? Send a helicopter to pick me up." The day I left Robert, my mysterious identity and the truth of that year would finally be revealed. The photo album at home had a thick interlayer. I opened it and saw a prenatal ultrasound photo. It said, "Hello, baby. Daddy loves you." Following the address, I found Robert in a quiet bar. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that Robert, who prided himself on being proper and came from a respectable family, would let another woman leave lipstick marks on his chest in public while his shirt was disheveled. He always said I was proper and poised, a good wife. Now it seemed that the reputation of a good wife had trapped me, while he was free to be reckless. His friends nearby tactfully moved away, leaving space for the two of them to kiss and embrace. They whispered amongst themselves. "I heard Mr. Reynolds loves his wife dearly," one said, "but now he's completely wrapped around Jessie's finger. Jessie's been with Robert for 3 years, maintaining her purity, but she's the one suffering more inside. Then why doesn't Robert divorce her? At least give Jessie some proper standing." "Shoo, don't bring that up. I heard Mr. Reynolds never actually signed the papers with that damaged goods." Damaged goods? Wow, spill the tea. In the dimly lit quiet bar, I wore a hoodie, hiding myself away in a corner, completely concealed, listening to the table next to me discussing Robert and my past. And in the distant sofa seating, Robert and Jessica were locked in a tight embrace. Judging by his fingers clenching until they were white, Robert looked like he wanted to absorb her into his very bones right there. Jessica's face was flushed, and even while wrapped around him, she didn't forget to send me a message to gloat. "Sarah, do you know why he hasn't touched you in 3 years? Because you're damaged goods," she wrote. "He told me that every time he sees you, he can't stop replaying the scene of you being kidnapped the night of the wedding." I stared at the now dim screen, my whole body trembling. So this was the reason Robert kept delaying signing the papers with me. 3 years ago, I suddenly received a message asking me to help an action team on a rescue mission. The sender knew I had some combat skills and knew everything about me. Coincidentally, that night there had indeed been multiple women kidnapped in this city, so I infiltrated the location. In the end, I did manage to rescue the girls, but the mastermind escaped and still hasn't been caught, which is why I couldn't show Robert the video evidence. But I had repeatedly told him that nothing had happened that night, that I was still myself. I even found others who had been kidnapped with me to testify, but he just wouldn't believe it. Once the seed of doubt takes root, no one can pull it out of his heart. Now my heart was dead, like scattered ash. I was tired, exhausted. I didn't want to love him anymore. Jessica, on the other hand, was remarkably talented. Her body was draped over Robert, yet she still found time to continue mocking me. "Oh, and I forgot to tell you," she messaged, "I'm pregnant." He said once I'm further along, "He'll take me to sign the papers, and then you'll be nothing but the mistress, hee. Pregnant. Mistress." Those words spun endlessly in my tear-filled eyes. I downed shots of liquor, one after another. I thought about being brave, about walking straight over and throwing a drink in their faces. But my body wouldn't obey, stiff and trembling, I couldn't even speak. People at a nearby table had been drinking and started calling out to Robert. "Mr. Reynolds," one yelled, "if you're scared to tell Sarah, we'll do it for you. Can't let our Jessie and her baby be wronged." The hand that was holding Jessica suddenly let go. Jessica's face instantly changed, and she glared resentfully at the friend who had spoken. Robert, however, stood up, calmly straightened his shirt, walked over, and punched the friend in the face. He said coldly, "Anyone who dares tell my wife about this, you'll regret it." Then, avoiding Jessica's attempts to cling to him, his eyes clear, he said, "That's enough for tonight. I need to go home and be with Sadie." With that, he turned and walked out of the bar. Jessica's eyes were filled with resentment, and she collapsed onto the table, sobbing uncontrollably. I watched it all with a cold smile. My heart was slowly becoming calm. Frank Miller's reply came quickly. "What's up? Is your husband coming too?" Did you tell him about buying the island? I replied, no, just me. Frank Miller typed for a long time, finally replying, got it. Give your old man 3 days, and I'll come get my little princess and bring you home. 2. When I got home, a warm meal was already prepared on the table. Robert was wearing an apron and crouched down to take off my shoes, then scooped me up and placed me by the dining table, even having wet wipes ready for me to wash my hands. He had changed into loungewear, the marks on his body were gone. By the window, his washed shirt was hanging to dry. Everything was as usual. I couldn't find a single trace of his cheating. He doted on me like a dutiful husband. Except for sharing a bed. I remembered shortly after the kidnapping incident, Robert had been drinking and pinned me to the bed. But before I could even take off my clothes, he covered his mouth and ran to the bathroom. When he came out, he leaned against the wall, speaking weakly. Honey, I had a bit too much to drink. Couldn't help but throw up. Let's save our first night for when we sign the papers. He turned and went into the study, where he stayed for 3 years. 3 years of feigning deep love had fooled me. It turned out he wasn't drunk, he was disgusted by me, afraid I would contaminate him. But now, Robert picked up some food and offered it to me, his eyes full of anticipation. I stared at him, and suddenly my throat churned. I rushed to the bathroom and threw up violently. Robert rushed after me, full of worry. Honey, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick? I replied coolly, oh, nothing. Just had too much to drink at a dinner with colleagues. He didn't know that now, it was I who was disgusted by him. The next day, I composed myself and went to the hospital to resign. I was just a small nurse, it didn't matter whether I was at such a big hospital or not. As I was leaving with my personal belongings, Robert rushed in with Jessica, looking anxious. Doctor, quickly, check on her. Check on my wife and the baby. He was in such a hurry that he bumped into me. When he saw it was me, his face instantly turned pale. He didn't even bother with Jessica, who was being helped away by doctors and nurses. He quickly explained, honey, don't misunderstand. That's the wife of one of my friends. He's not around, so in my panic, I said she was my wife. I crouched down to pick up my things, speaking flatly, okay, I understand. That's when he noticed the packed boxes in my hands and frowned. Honey, you resigned? I didn't speak. He helped me with the heavy items. Good. I can afford to support 10 of you now. From now on, you can just stay home and enjoy life. After saying that, he started to leave with me, but a nurse called out from behind him, hey, Mr. Reynolds, Jessica's husband, you need to sign something here. Robert looked at me, troubled. I looked up and smiled at him. Go ahead. Seeing me smile, he left, reassured. That night, Jessica sent me a message, asking me to meet her at the bar. When I got there, Robert was naturally also present. After the scare during the day, Jessica's face was still a bit pale. She stood on the stage, looking at us, saying she wanted to thank us for our help. She sang a song. The melody was melancholic, her voice sorrowful. Every line was about unrequited love, filled with her love for Robert. In their space, it felt as though I was the intruder. The crowd erupted in cheers, and Jessica smiled as she came to sit at our sofa booth. Robert was excitedly showing me how to drink tequila. Jessica touched her belly and smiled. Robert, dear, he used to rarely drink. I was the one who taught him tequila. I looked up at her. Robert had ruined his stomach from drinking during his startup days. Jessica seemed oblivious to what she was boasting about. Oh? Miss Jessica, you truly are an expert in nightlife. You know everything. Jessica's face paled. She looked at Robert helplessly. Robert suddenly stood up and said he needed to use the restroom. After he left, Jessica dropped her act and sneered at me. Sarah, why bother with the passive aggression? Everyone knows Robert thinks you're damaged goods. I might have worked in bars, but my body has only been with Robert. As for you, TSK, kidnapped for a night, you know exactly what happened. I curved my lips into a smile. Miss Jessica, don't be so quick to mock me. I was indeed kidnapped for a night, but in the perpetrator's dark room, I saw a woman who looked like a dog. Oh dear, now that I think about it, that girl looked just like Miss Jessica. Jessica shot up from the sofa, her lips trembling. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about that. Don't make baseless accusations. Seeing her panic, I felt even more certain. But there was no rush. Exposing her now wouldn't be any fun. Jessica relaxed when I didn't say anything more. Robert's figure emerged from the direction of the restroom. Jessica suddenly took a big gulp of alcohol. When Robert walked over, she crouched by the table and started throwing up, speaking weakly, Sarah, dear, pregnant people really shouldn't drink. Please don't force me. Robert and I are truly innocent. Robert looked at me coldly, yelling at me for the first time in his life. Sarah, are you forcing a pregnant woman to drink? I raised an eyebrow. I didn't. Do you believe her or me? Robert snorted coldly. What pregnant woman would risk her baby as a joke? I didn't realize jealousy could make you so malicious. I stood up. There was still a full glass of tequila on the table. I raised my hand and splashed it all over Robert's head, then turned and left. I walked home, only to find the front door wide open. As I stepped inside, Mrs. Reynolds shattered a cup right in front of me. Humph, you little Sarah, she spat. How dare you lay a hand on my son? I was puzzled when I had hit Robert. Then Mr. Reynolds threw a phone down in front of me. On it was a video of me splashing Robert at the bar just now. I swiped open the video and checked the chat history, a cold smile forming in my heart. Jessica had sent it to them. Tiffany sized me up, her face full of contempt. Sarah, she sneered, 3 years ago, you were ruined by someone else. My brother didn't care, he married you out of love for you. But you bitch, how dare you get physical? Robert's parents sat on the sofa with their feet up, staring coldly at me. Our family comes from a respectable family, generations of refinement, Mrs. Reynolds said coldly. We ignored the gossip and brought you into our home. Is this how you repay us? Ever since your father went bankrupt, we took in damaged goods like you. Our Robert has suffered so much inside. I smiled sarcastically. Generations of refinement? By letting your son cheat? By marrying a bar girl? Tiffany yelled, shut up. How dare you call my future sister-in-law a bar girl? Jessie sings at a bar, but she's independent, doesn't rely on men, and she came to my brother with her purity intact. She's not damaged goods like you. I burst out laughing. Purity intact? What, were you there to watch them the night they were together? Mr. Reynolds, hearing this, pointed at me angrily. You vulgar woman, get out of the Reynolds house. I was about to say that I had paid for this house, and if anyone was rolling out, it should be them. Before I could say it, the door opened, and Robert came in, helping Jessica. Seeing everyone there, he looked surprised for a moment. Jessica, moaning theatrically, lay down on my favorite sofa, casually pulling my scarf over herself. Before I could tell her to put it down, Robert rushed over and yanked the scarf off. Don't use that. Disgust was evident in his eyes. Jessica's lips curved into a smile. Robert, dear, she said, I don't mind things being dirty. After all, Sarah was assaulted 3 years ago, and it wasn't her choice. I watched them coldly. Jessica stood up again, pretending to want to move seats, but she deliberately dropped her bag on the floor. A property deed fell out. She covered her mouth with a little gasp. Oh, sorry. The gift Robert gave me fell out. She reached for it, but I snatched it up. I saw that our wedding house had, at some point, been put in Jessica's name. For 3 years, I had never cared about such things. Now, he didn't seem to mind the house I had lived in being dirty, he actually gave my property to Jessica. I held up the property deed and asked Robert, do you have anything to say? Guilt flickered in Robert's eyes. He stammered, unable to speak. His parents spoke up from behind him. Son, what are you afraid of? Mrs. Reynolds said. You've protected these damaged goods for 3 years. Everyone's been talking about you. Now, there's no need to hide it from her. Finally, Robert made his decision. He pulled Jessica closer and laced his fingers through hers. Sarah, I'm sorry, he said. As you can see, Jessie and I are together. I can't keep going on like this with you. Given your current status, you wouldn't be accepted into the Reynolds family anyway. I hope you can understand. I looked at him coldly. Robert, why? Is it just because of that kidnapping, you think I'm not pure? But I proved nothing happened. And if you loved me, none of this would matter. Enough. He suddenly snapped, cutting me off. Sarah, I said enough. It's because I love you. I tried, I really did, but I just couldn't touch you. Every time I tried, I felt sick. I saw a therapist. I've suffered for 3 years. Why won't you understand me? Slap. I hit him hard across the face. You jerk. If that was the real reason, you could have just told me, instead of hurting me by betraying me like this. As soon as the words left my mouth, Robert's parents were stunned. They rushed forward, ready to attack me. But this time, I stepped back 2 paces and opened the door. Outside, a group of burly men stormed in. They surrounded me, staring menacingly at the Reynolds family. I smiled and said, Robert, take your whole family and get out. I don't want to see any of you again. Under my intimidation, Robert threw out a threat. Sarah, he snarled, you're the one without money now. Let's see how long you can afford these goons. Don't spend a single one of my dollars if you're so tough. I slammed the door shut. There wasn't a single shred of lingering affection for him left in my heart. Outside, I could hear their voices. Once she's broke, she'll come crawling back to our son, I heard them say. By the floor-to-ceiling window, the bodyguards were arranging everything for me. Miss Cha. Erman Miller's helicopter will be on the roof tomorrow, one said. You'll have to make do here for one more night. For on my last day, just as I was about to leave, I got a call from my best friend. She told me to quickly turn on the TV. It was still early, so I opened my laptop. A video of Robert giving a live interview popped up. It turned out that after I kicked them out last night, Jessica had severe abdominal pain and was rushed to the hospital. The media recognized Robert, the rising star in the industry. The media's professional nose for gossip caught the scent of scandal. Jessica was currently in the hospital trying to save her pregnancy, and Robert was giving the interview right outside her room. He spoke tiredly. Excuse me, could everyone please keep it down? I'm afraid of disturbing my wife. A reporter asked in surprise. As far as I know, isn't Mr. Reynolds' wife Miss Sarah, whose family went bankrupt? Robert shook his head, looking as if it was difficult to speak. His sister, Tiffany, jumped in. Heh, Tiffany sneered, Sarah was kidnapped. She hasn't been pure for a long time, everyone knows that. Our Reynolds family is respectable, and we've helped her out for 3 years. We've done more than enough. Robert pushed his sister away and snapped, Shut up. Don't talk about Sadie like that. She was your sister-in-law, after all. Then, he turned back to the camera and said, Thank you for your concern. Sarah is the past. Now, Ms. Jessica is the woman I need to protect. She suffered so much hardship because of me. Robert in the video looked incredibly sincere. I saw that people online were praising him. The bodyguard behind me stepped forward, his face expressionless. Miss, shall we make a move now? I smiled and told him not to rush. It wasn't time yet. Ding. The next second, a clipped video appeared in the website's comments section. It showed me, huddled in a corner after being kidnapped, with a group of leering, taunting men in front of me. The video was blurry, but some comments confidently stated that it was Sarah. As I was scrolling through the comments, the phone I'd set aside rang. Jessica's voice, like a venomous snake, came through the phone. Sarah, how do you like my little gift? She hissed. Get out of my house right now, or with no power or influence, you won't be able to fight me. I replied, You really surprised me. Since you've sent me a gift, it would be rude not to return the favor, wouldn't it? Get ready to receive your big present. Jessica frantically asked what I meant. I coldly hung up the phone. Before closing my laptop, I saw that the Reynolds family had issued a statement online. To prevent anyone from fraudulently claiming to be a daughter-in-law of the Reynolds family in the future, we hereby declare that Ms. Jessica is the only recognized daughter-in-law of the Reynolds family. Any others are imposters. Strangely, just a few days ago, seeing Robert's betrayal still hurt, but now that he had publicly broken ties with me, I felt released, indifferent. The helicopter had been waiting on the roof for a long time. Accompanied by the bodyguards, I went upstairs. As I was about to board the helicopter, a bodyguard handed me a laptop. Miss, the kidnapper from 3 years ago has been apprehended. The mysterious person said you can reveal the truth now. 5. The helicopter hadn't taken off yet. I ran my fingers over the laptop in my hands, deciding to make everything public. Just then, Robert's phone call came in. He asked tearfully where I was. Sadie, he choked out, did you see the TV? I'm calling to explain. I didn't want it to be this messy, but Jessie is in the hospital, and I was worried about her feelings. I didn't want anything to happen to the baby, so I hope you can understand. Oh, and why aren't you home? I'm planning to compensate you with that house. I'll leave you some money and find you a nurse job at a reputable hospital. Don't worry, even if Jessie and I get married, I won't abandon you. Listening to his rambling, I suddenly felt incredibly annoyed. Robert, I said, it's not necessary. I hung up decisively, handed the laptop to Mr. Miller's secretary standing nearby, and signaled it was time to leave. Mr. Miller's secretary, seeing I was free, leaned in. Miss, have you decided? I nodded. The secretary smiled, opened the laptop, and pressed the send button. Moments later, the helicopter took off. I looked down at the land below, my heart recalling the past 3 years. I suddenly realized the memories were somewhat blurry. Robert and I hadn't had many shared moments. It was the good times we shared before the wedding ceremony that sustained his 3-year pretense towards me, and those innocent memories that sustained my 3 years of waiting in vain. Now I was starting a new life. I hoped he and Jessica could still make it work after he knew the truth. The island was bathed in bright sunshine. Just as I had imagined, Frank Miller's life was still so comfortable and free. 3 years ago, he thought I had found a good match, so he spread the news that he was bankrupt, handed over all his assets and businesses to Alexander Miller to manage, and came out here to buy an island and live a carefree life. When I arrived at the island, Frank Miller came to greet me wearing just a pair of floral shorts. Tears streamed down his face, and he wanted to rush forward and hug me, but Alexander Miller grabbed him by the waistband of his shorts. "Dad," Alexander Miller said, "Sadie is a grown woman. You should get dressed properly before you hug her." Frank Miller glared at him, but obediently went inside to change. Alexander Miller turned to look at me, then loosened his tie and took off his gold-rimmed glasses. I wondered if, after 3 years, he was planning to pick a fight with me? But the next second, I fell into a warm embrace. Alexander Miller's husky voice sounded above my head. "If I had known it would be like this, I never should have let you go. Sadie, welcome home." At his words, "welcome home," my nose stung, and the tears in my eyes couldn't be held back any longer. They fell in large drops onto him. "Alexander," I sobbed, "I missed you so much." "I missed you more," he said. It was good to be home. Even though the island was still new to me, Frank Miller's nagging felt incredibly familiar and comforting. "Look at her," Frank Miller fussed. "Skinny as a rail." "Alexander," he told him, "take her out and train her after dinner. Run 10 laps along the island beach today. No, make it 20. I won't feel easy until she's stronger." I cast a pleading look at Alexander Miller. After 3 years without training, I had lost all my muscle. I was a delicate, weak woman now. How could I possibly endure Frank Miller's torturous training? Under the table, Alexander Miller's warm hand reached for mine. He gently squeezed my palm, then cleared his throat. "Dad," Alexander Miller said, "let's skip it today. Sadie is tired. I'll take her to her room to rest." Frank Miller never argued with Alexander Miller's decisions. But I just stared blankly as Alexander Miller held my hand, a strange flutter rising in my heart. In the room, Alexander Miller gently pressed me into the sofa and handed me a laptop. His large frame stood behind me. "Sadie," he said, "these are the updates from back home. Take a look." The first thing I saw was Robert. Unlike the last time he calmly gave an interview, this time, his eyes were dark and bruised. He was desperately pleading with the media. "Everyone," he begged, "my Sadie is missing. Can you please help me find her?" A few days ago, Mr. Miller's secretary had sent all the truth to the major media outlets. And the truth about the girl kidnapping case from 3 years ago had surfaced. That day, several girls were kidnapped, including Jessica. After receiving the mysterious order, I disappeared from the wedding ceremony. By the time I was in the kidnappers' hands, they were discussing demanding ransom and then killing us. The girls in the room were too terrified to speak. Jessica, however, stood out at that moment. She directly kissed the kidnapper leader on the mouth and willingly went into that room. Everyone knew what happened. I wanted to speak up and stop her, but she was too fast. I was focused on saving everyone else's lives and didn't get the chance. Ultimately, unable to endure the torment, she fainted. Meanwhile, I quietly subdued the guard and, working with that mysterious organization, rescued all the girls. But I hadn't expected that Jessica had gotten plastic surgery. Her appearance had changed slightly. At the bar, I'd only felt she looked familiar. It was later that I gradually remembered. Yet she had gotten involved with Robert and was pregnant. Before coming to the island, I had only released the video of me rescuing the girls, proving my innocence. The netizens who had slandered me, claiming I had lost my virginity and creating malicious videos of me, instantly turned around. They called my actions heroic and lambasted the Reynolds family. Shocking, heroic girl slandered for 3 years. That damn jerk. He dared to look down on our goddess. The Reynolds are finished. I'm gonna write a 30,000-word rant to destroy him. I didn't retaliate like Jessica had harmed me, publicizing the details of her violation everywhere. However, details about Jessica's sacrifice and plastic surgery were also dug up by the public after the kidnappers were caught. In the initial video, Jessica's face could be clearly seen, but it was later pixelated. Blurry videos of Jessica's transaction appeared on major video platforms. Disgusting. Turns out Robert ditched a pearl for damaged goods. How could Jessica do that? Robert must be blind, a rotten piece of work. LOL. The Reynolds family kept going on about reputation and purity, and in the end, they were dragged down by the real damaged goods. Haha. Mr. S. Reynolds must be spitting blood. That's karma. There were videos online of the Reynolds family confronting Jessica. Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, wearing masks, yelled at Jessica, calling her a liar and trying to force her to get an abortion. They grabbed Jessica by the hair and threw her out of the hospital, forbidding her to try and save the pregnancy. The Reynolds family wanted her dead immediately, but with everyone watching, they couldn't go too far. Jessica, however, was having a terrible time. She found Robert. Robert was blackout drunk. He glared at her with hatred, then slapped Jessica several times. "You bitch," he slurred. "You lied to me, and you spread rumors slandering Sadie. Once you have the baby, I'm not letting you off the hook." Jessica held her face and burst out laughing. "Robert," she cackled, "yeah, I'm a bitch, but you're no better. You destroyed your own happiness with your own hands. What does that have to do with me?" After that day, Jessica disappeared. My friends back home said that when they passed the Reynolds house, they would occasionally hear a woman screaming inside. And Robert's company, which was about to go public, crashed and burned. His business partners stopped working with him. The entire Reynolds family enterprise collapsed, stagnating completely. I was somewhat surprised. I hadn't expected things to escalate so drastically in just a few days. Looking up at Alexander Miller, his glasses gleamed with a cold light, and his lips curved into a slight smile. Suddenly, I jumped up. "Alexander," I exclaimed, you didn't expose all this stuff, did you? Who exactly are you?" He rubbed the tip of his nose, looking at me uncomfortably. "About that," he said, "I owe you an apology, Sadie. I asked for your help with that rescue 3 years ago, but I had made preparations. I absolutely wouldn't have let anything happen to you. I was too stunned to speak." It turned out Alexander Miller had another identity. I wanted to press him, but he said there were many things he couldn't reveal, only that he was sorry for ruining my relationship. I laughed bitterly. If a partner is going to reject you as damaged goods just because you were assaulted, then that kind of relationship isn't worth having anyway. I sighed. It was just a shame I had wasted 3 years on Robert. If only I had seen him for what he was sooner. After everything happened, Robert regretted it. He started looking for me, but found I had seemingly disappeared. He plastered missing wife posters everywhere. He even went online and begged for help. "Please, everyone, help me find Sarah. She's my wife, and I lost her." Netizens scoffed. Pfft. The statement the Reynolds family put out is still online, saying Jessie is their only recognized daughter-in-law. Now that Sarah's a hero, they regret it? Shameless. But Robert seemed to go crazy. He didn't care what anyone said, neglected his work, and went around asking his friends for information. But none of my friends would give him the time of day. He frantically called my old number, and finally, one day, I answered. Robert was as happy as if he'd won the lottery. "Sadie," he said, "I was wrong. I misunderstood you. It turns out you're the most pure and innocent girl. Please forgive me. I'll give you the house, all my assets. I've locked Jessie up. I only want the child she's carrying. Once she gives birth, I'll deal with her to get revenge for you." I gave a cold laugh. "Robert," I said, "I answered this call to tell you that you're like gum stuck to my shoe now, and you're truly disgusting. Ever since I found out about you and Jessica, I haven't for a second thought about forgiving you. Just give it up." I hung up and immediately turned off my phone. A few days later, I came across a video on a video site of Robert's parents kneeling and begging me to come back. They held up photos of a gaunt, pathetic-looking Robert and apologized everywhere. "Sadie, dear, Mr. and Ms. Reynolds pleaded, it was our fault back then. Please come back and save Robert. He ran off to jump in the river when we weren't watching. He can't live without you." I ate the fruit Alexander Miller had cut for me, watching the videos and apologies as if they were a joke. Netizens commented scornfully, "If only you'd known, why didn't you act that way before?" That's what I wanted to say too. You didn't cherish what you had, so who are you putting on this show for now? Not only that, but Robert's company had completely collapsed. He didn't know that most of his former business partners had worked with him out of respect for Frank Miller. But when he publicly abandoned me, all those partners reacted the moment I left the country. They not only terminated their contracts with the Reynolds family but also demanded that the Reynolds family pay all outstanding balances. Robert was wallowing in despair over losing me, unable to pull himself out, while his once arrogant parents faced relentless debt collection from manufacturers every day, living a miserable life. Now they had sold all their cars and property, but it still wasn't enough to pay off the debts. They were living on the run, hiding from creditors. That wedding house eventually came back to me, but something dirty had lived there. I didn't want it anymore, so I told Alexander Miller to sell it cheaply. The Reynolds family's chaotic, miserable life had just begun. I was living a comfortable life abroad, unlike anything I'd experienced before. Occasionally seeing their miserable news brought a sense of satisfaction. Time passed quickly. A few months later, Jessica gave birth to the baby. Robert hadn't signed the papers and married her, but the child was his. He said nonchalantly that he was willing to be responsible for the child. The Reynolds family held a 100-day baby celebration for the child. But I never expected the location for the 100-day baby celebration to be right next to my lawn wedding venue. When a scruffy bearded Robert saw me, I was taking selfies in my wedding dress. Someone behind me cautiously called out, "Sadie, is that you?" The smile on my face vanished when I heard his voice. I turned and indeed saw Robert. His eyes instantly lit up with joy, and he excitedly walked forward. "Sadie," he exclaimed, "I finally found you." Saying this, he tried to hug me. I stepped back 2 paces, looking at him coldly. "Mr. Reynolds," I said, "please stay away from me. You're tainted. Seeing you makes me sick." Robert looked deeply hurt. He stared at me, almost pleading. "Sadie," he begged, "where did you go? I've been looking for you for months, worried you weren't eating or sleeping properly. I was wrong about everything back then. Can you please forgive me?" Suddenly, he noticed the wedding dress I was wearing, his expression becoming agitated. "Sadie, what are you doing in a wedding dress? Are you trying to forget me, trying to marry just anyone? Don't worry, I know I messed up. I'm back for you. You don't need to marry someone else and be unhappy." His confidence almost made me laugh. I pulled out my marriage certificate. "Robert," I said, "what makes you think I'd ever come back to you? Look closely, I'm already married. See the poster by the entrance? That's my husband. He's tall and handsome. You're just a tainted jerk. Do you really think you're worth me looking back?" When I showed him the marriage certificate, his eyes reddened, and his body trembled. "No, Sadie," he cried, "I love you. You have me in your heart. No other man can give you the life you want. I can give it to you." I was about to call him shameless when Alexander Miller's voice came from behind me. "Who says I can't give my wife the life she wants?" Alexander Miller said. "Oh, look, it's the young Mr. Reynolds from the supposedly pure and respectable family, isn't it? Robert, your company crashed, and you had to borrow money just for this 100-day baby celebration. And you still have time to lust after my wife?" Seeing Alexander Miller in person, Mr. Reynolds trembled all over. He whispered to Robert, "Son, doesn't that man look like Alexander Miller, the richest man in this city?" Robert's eyes widened. His gaze darted back and forth between me and Alexander. Finally, he seemed to understand, looking at me in horror. "Miller? You're both Millers. Sadie, who exactly is he to you?" I smiled. "Oh, you didn't know? Alexander Miller was like a brother to me, but starting today, he's my husband." Robert's eyes were red-rimmed, his body swaying. "So, the Miller family never went bankrupt. I was the clown all along," I nodded. "Who told you the Miller family went bankrupt? Didn't you ever wonder why your company grew so quickly? Whose influence did you think you were riding on? Robert, you're just unlucky, destined to be broke. You were given an opportunity and you couldn't even grasp it. Bad luck follows you." Then, in front of him, I sweetly called out to Alexander Miller, "Honey, let's go upstairs. Don't keep our friends and family waiting." The ceremony was about to start. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words on him. I took Alexander's hand and walked away. Behind us, Robert let out a pained roar. He crouched by the doorway, slowly sinking to his knees on the ground, the agony in his eyes eclipsing all light. When Jessica tried to urge him toward the celebration, I heard he flipped over a table and slapped Jessica. "You bitch," he yelled, "this is all your fault. You made me lose Sadie. Give me the baby. Get out of my sight from now on. I never want to see you again." After being beaten severely, Jessica screamed and left. Her whereabouts are unknown. My wedding was held on a spacious lawn. Not far away, that shabby cheap diner was where Robert had set up the 100-day baby celebration for his child. Only a few people were there, awkwardly watching their farce unfold. Over at my wedding, 2 voices saying "I do" echoed with happiness. After the officiant pronounced us married, the reception was filled with well wishes. Until the reception ended and Alexander Miller carried me to the car, I saw Robert still hiding in the corner, watching in agony. He followed us all the way to the villa neighborhood, but he couldn't get in. He could only stand far away, staring at our windows, trying to catch a glimpse of my eyes filled with pity or forgiveness. In the dead of night, Alexander Miller turned off the main lights. As the shadows of him and I embracing slowly fell onto the bed, I heard a thunderous roar. Alexander Miller covered my ears and playfully silenced me with a kiss. Honey, he murmured against my lips, focus on me. Don't mind that noise. I chuckled, sinking into the overwhelming waves of his love. The night was long, but our future happiness would be even longer. Not long after, I got pregnant. When Alexander Miller and I went to see our new villa, we saw Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds tending to the flowers and plants in a park, their old clothes covered in dirt. Robert was nearby, completely drunk in broad daylight, with a crying baby next to him. Under the scorching sun, they had lost all their former pride. When they saw me, they quickly put on masks, grabbed Robert, and nervously scurried away, their aged backs looking utterly desolate. I smiled. It was all their own doing. Now, they were finally facing the consequences. Alexander Miller put his arm around me, and returned to leave. From then on, my life had new meaning. After the baby was born, Alexander Miller and I moved to Frank Miller's Island and lived a happy married life. As for those insignificant people, they had long since faded away with time. For the rest of my life, I only want to cherish the person right in front of me,